In life, we often chase after things that cannot be grasped, trying to hold on to things that at times we do not fully understand. Worries, anxieties, and negative emotions silently invade our hearts, making us tired, confused, and unable to find peace. But in the teachings of the Buddha, we realize a profound truth. The more you hold on, the more you suffer. The Buddha teaches that human suffering originates from attachment, from things we cannot let go of, from things that do not belong to us. We fear loss, fear being left behind, and drown in memories and endless fears. And when we try to hold on, the tighter we grip, the heavier it feels, and life becomes more exhausting. But in truth, letting go is not about abandoning everything in life. Letting go is an act of wisdom, a way to relax the soul, to free the mind. It is the acceptance, the confrontation with the fact that everything is impermanent, that everything changes. Only when we know how to let go can we find the peace and serenity we have long been searching for. The Buddha teaches that only when we are no longer bound by unnecessary things, when our souls are freed from meaningless worries, can we live fully with what is present, with the moments of the present. And it is in that moment that true peace will come to us. So why does holding on lead to suffering? Because when we hold on, we are creating a burden for ourselves. When we let go, we not only free ourselves, but also open our hearts to all the better things in life. Let your soul be light, peaceful, and free, because only then can we truly live fully with life. In this modern, noisy world, we often forget how to listen to ourselves. The sounds of work, family, endless worries, and constant responsibilities weigh heavily on us, making our souls always tense and tired. But if one day you stop, slow down, be still, and listen deeply within, you will realize that peace is always there. It's just that we haven't been patient enough to feel it. The Buddha teaches that life is like a river that keeps flowing, and so is our mind, always being carried away by thoughts, emotions, and events happening around us. However, when we know how to stop and listen to ourselves, we will find peace even in the midst of chaotic emotions, worries, and even in the most difficult times. The Buddha does not teach us to escape the busyness or difficulties, but to see them and face them with peace and gentleness. Listening to oneself is not just about being silent. It is a journey of self-discovery, understanding what truly matters and letting go of what is unnecessary. It is a deep understanding that we do not need to rush, that we do not need to do everything that society or others demand of us. When we listen to ourselves, we realize that each person has their own path, their own rhythm to live by, and only when we follow our own rhythm can we feel peace and happiness. You may wonder how to listen to yourself in such a noisy world. The answer lies in practice. Start with small moments, like when you sit down to enjoy a cup of tea or when you walk outdoors. Let your mind be free, not dragged along by chaotic thoughts. Let yourself relax, feel each breath, and gradually, you will realize that in every present moment, there is a quiet space, a peace that you can find. One of the simplest but most effective ways to listen to yourself is by practicing meditation. Meditation is not something complicated or distant. It is a way for us to stop and connect with ourselves. In meditation, we do not need to do anything except just breathe. Feel the breath in and out. Let the mind settle without distraction. Meditation helps us realize that in a world full of noise and worries, we can still find moments of stillness to listen to the peace in our souls. The Buddha teaches that peace is not something far away or hard to achieve. Peace is the stillness in each moment of life, the ability to face difficulties without being shaken by them. Sometimes we keep racing against time, with goals and dreams, forgetting that it is in the moments of listening, in the rest of the soul, that we can find the boundless energy to continue walking. Listening to oneself does not mean withdrawing or neglecting responsibilities, but learning to find balance in a busy life. We can continue working, continue taking care of our family, continue facing challenges. But when we can listen to ourselves, we will realize that life does not need to be rushed. Everything will come at the right time. Remember, every day you live, every moment you breathe, you have the opportunity to find peace. It is a process, a long journey to realize that peace is not something far away, but a return to oneself, a stillness in the heart, a letting go of unnecessary things so that the soul can be free. When we listen to ourselves, we will find the teachings of the Buddha in our own lives. We will see that only by letting go of worries and troubles can we truly see the beautiful, simple, and meaningful things life offers. And this is the path to peace, the path that the Buddha pointed out, a path that each of us can walk, whether in peaceful days or in the midst of storms. In the constant flow of life, have you ever felt like you are living in the past, always preoccupied with things that have passed, with mistakes and losses? Or are you worrying about the future, about things that have not happened, about possible difficulties? We seem to always be caught in these thoughts, unable to escape, and in doing so, we unknowingly lose ourselves, losing the peace within. And at that moment, we forget that happiness and peace are not far away, but are right here in the present moment. The Buddha once taught that when we live too much in the past or worry too much about the future, we lose ourselves. In the Buddha's teachings, he emphasizes, the past is gone, the future has not come, only the present is real. Thoughts about the past are often memories that cannot be changed, regrets that cannot be fixed, while worries about the future are just things that are unclear, that have not yet happened. When we get caught up in these, we lose our connection to the present, the only place where we can live and experience true peace. Our souls may suffer not because of what is happening right now, but because we keep worrying about what is past or what has not come. These are emotions we cannot control, but we create for ourselves fears, anxieties, and regrets. The Buddha teaches that when we let go of unpleasant memories, old wounds, or worries about what has not come, we free our souls and find peace in the present moment. At this point, we need to realize that every moment of life is an opportunity to reconnect with ourselves, to feel the peace within our souls, whether in moments of stillness or in the busyness of life. When we live in the present, we don't have to worry about right or wrong, or fear things that have not happened. We just need to breathe gently, feel each breath, and know that we are living fully in that moment. To truly live in the present, the Buddha teaches us to practice mindfulness, the awareness and presence in every moment. This does not mean that we must abandon all thoughts or emotions, but to learn to recognize them without letting them control us. When we learn to focus on what is happening, we will see that every moment, every breath, every step has value and can be a lesson, an opportunity to heal and refresh the soul. Mindfulness helps us recognize our emotions and thoughts without judging them. When a negative emotion arises, like anxiety or anger, we should not try to avoid or hide it. Instead, we can observe it, feel it, and from there understand ourselves better. We cannot change the past or control the future, but we can choose how to live and face those emotions in the present. The Buddha pointed out that happiness can only be found when we live fully in each moment. And to achieve this, we need to let go of thoughts about the past and the future. When our souls are no longer caught up in what has passed or fearful of what has not come, we will feel freedom, serenity, and peace in the present moment. A close friend once shared with me that every morning when she wakes up, instead of rushing into work, she spends a few minutes meditating and breathing deeply. This is how she reconnects with herself, to feel that she is living, that she exists in the present moment. She doesn't need to think about what is past, doesn't need to worry about what has not yet come. She just needs to live in that moment. And from there, everything seems lighter, easier. When we are no longer lost in the past or future, when we live fully in the present, peace will naturally come. It is in these moments that the soul will be healed. The wounds in the heart will gradually be soothed, and we will realize that true happiness is simply being able to live in the present moment with a gentle and peaceful heart. Therefore, learn to listen to yourself, learn to live in the present, and let go of what is unnecessary. Let worries about the past and future pass by, so your soul can be at peace, so you can live fully with the precious moments of life. It is then that you will realize that happiness is not a destination, but a journey of living each day, each moment, each breath, in the peace within yourself. Our souls are often swept up in the whirlpools of life, from busy work, relationships, to endless worries and concerns. Each day passes as if we are constantly chasing an endless race, always feeling like we have to do something to solve this problem or that. But in moments like these, do we realize that it is in these moments of stillness that we can truly find peace and reconnect with ourselves? The Buddha teaches that mindfulness is not an effort, an action that must yield a specific result, but the act of letting go of the clutter in the mind and returning to the present. This is a profound lesson, not always easy to practice, but it is the key to tranquility and peace in the soul. We do not need to search for happiness far away. We only need to turn back, take a deep breath, and release all the tension in our hearts, and everything will naturally become peaceful. Mindfulness, in its simplest form, is when we stop and simply exist in the moment. Not chasing thoughts about the past, not worrying about the future, but just breathing, feeling life in each breath, in each heartbeat. The Buddha pointed out that in the present moment, we can find peace because, at that time, the soul is no longer distracted by worries, unnecessary entanglements. When we try to hold on, try to change everything, or try to control every situation, we often fall into a state of stress and exhaustion. But when we let go of control, don't need to do anything, don't need to change anything, we realize that everything has a natural order to it. Mindfulness is not about making the mind stop thinking, but about accepting all thoughts and emotions without being swept away by them, without letting them control our soul. To practice mindfulness, the Buddha teaches us to return to the breath. The breath is the rhythm of life, the thread connecting the body and the soul. When we focus on the breath, we return to the present, to what is happening right now in this very moment. It is an incredibly simple practice, yet very powerful. In each inhale, we breathe in life. In each exhale, we release all worries, sorrows, and from there, peace will come. In times of stress, in moments of fatigue, simply sitting down, closing your eyes, and focusing on your breath, you will notice a miracle. The tension seems to vanish. The chaotic thoughts gradually calm down. It feels as though everything around you is quieting, leaving only yourself in stillness, in the space of peace. Mindfulness is also about learning to let go of unrealistic ideas, expectations about ourselves and the world around us. The Buddha teaches that when we let go of expectations about how everything should unfold, about the results we desire, we no longer feel disappointment or frustration when things don't go as planned. This letting go is not about abandoning responsibility or giving up, but about accepting the present as it is, so the soul can be free and unburdened. There are days when you feel you can do nothing, can't achieve the goals you set, and failure seems to pile up. But when you learn to practice mindfulness, you will realize that not everything has to be done to have value. Sometimes, the value lies in the moments of stillness, in letting go, in simply breathing and living fully in the present. Mindfulness is also a way to heal the soul. When you are no longer swept up in negative emotions, when you are no longer worrying about the future or regretting the past, you will feel lightness and tranquility in your soul. From there, you will be able to view every issue in life with greater ease and calm. Healing does not come from complex solutions, but from the simplicity of accepting oneself and the present. The quiet moments, the moments of returning to oneself, are not about abandoning life, but about finding balance and peace that each of us deserves. Mindfulness helps us to more clearly perceive what is truly important in life and to let go of the things that are merely burdens that only make us tired. Mindfulness helps us live true to ourselves, to live with genuine values without getting lost in the noise of life. Therefore, give yourself those moments of stillness to let go of the clutter and return to the present. Let each breath, each step, each action in life bring you peace so that you can live fully in each moment. When you learn to practice mindfulness, you will realize that peace is not something far away. It is the present that you are living in. Each of us must face challenges, negative emotions, anxiety, fear, anger, or sometimes disappointment and sadness. These emotions are like dark clouds hovering in the sky of each person's soul, making everything seem unclear and difficult. But instead of trying to push them away, ignoring or resisting them, one of the valuable lessons the Buddha teaches is to gently accept these emotions without resisting or running from them. A story from a friend of mine can help illustrate this. Her name is Min, a strong woman, but sometimes she feels sudden waves of negative emotions hitting her, making her stop in the midst of her busy life. Once, after having a heated argument with a colleague, Min felt her heart burning like a pile of fire. The harsh words and anger made her feel like she could not bear it. In that moment, Min remembered the teachings of the Buddha. Do not resist negative emotions, but let them come, understand them, and let them go. She paused for a moment, took a deep breath, and let the anger pass. Instead of trying to push it out of her mind, Min decided to let it flow through without acceptance. She realized that anger was just a temporary feeling, not the essence of who she was. That feeling did not define her worth, and it did not need to dominate her soul. Gradually, she felt peace return, and the negative emotions gradually dissipated. This does not mean that we cannot feel sad, worried, or angry. But instead of resisting them, we can choose to face them gently, without resistance, just acceptance. When we let negative emotions pass without creating resistance in the mind, peace will naturally return. Peace of mind is not the absence of negative emotions, but their presence without letting them control our lives. For example, one day when I felt tired and didn't want to do anything, this feeling lasted all morning, making me feel as if I had no energy to continue. But instead of falling into the spiral of that feeling and thinking that I wasn't strong enough, I decided to just sit down, breathe deeply, and remind myself that this feeling was only temporary. And indeed, after just a few minutes of relaxation, I realized that the power to change the feeling was not in running away or pushing it away, but in acknowledging and not resisting it. It was then that I felt lighter in my heart and was able to continue working with a more relaxed attitude. Peace of mind also comes from letting go of unrealistic expectations about oneself and life. When we have too many expectations and try to meet the standards set by society or ourselves, we can feel disappointed when we fail to achieve them. But if we stop for a moment and ask ourselves whether these expectations are truly necessary, whether they make us feel happier or just a burden, we will realize that peace comes from the freedom in letting go. Life doesn't need to be a race, nor does it need to be a series of consecutive successes. In fact, happiness and peace come from the simple moments, those moments when we live fully in the present, without worrying about the past or the future. Therefore, allow yourself to feel every emotion fully. Let them come, but don't let them take over your soul. Peace of mind is not the absence of storms, but the ability to remain calm when facing the storm. It is the acceptance that not everything in life can be controlled, but how we respond to them is what matters. We often carry invisible burdens, worries, fears, sadness, regrets, or unrealistic expectations. We keep clinging to these things, thinking that if we don't hold on tight, they will disappear, or that we cannot live without them. But in reality, holding on to these burdens only makes our souls more tired and heavy. And then at some point, we realize that it is these very burdens that are preventing us from finding peace and happiness in life. So, how can we free ourselves from these burdens? The Buddha teaches that letting go is not about giving up, but about gently releasing the burdens in our hearts. Letting go does not mean abandoning valuable things, but learning not to let them control our lives. Only when we learn to let go can we free our souls from unnecessary worry and find freedom and peace in the present moment. To let go, first, we need to understand clearly that the things that cause us suffering, the negative emotions, are not truly ours. They are just temporary thoughts and feelings, and if we are not careful, they will take control of our minds. However, the Buddha teaches that everything we feel is not eternal. It comes and goes, like waves in the ocean, and nothing in this world can last forever. Therefore, we do not need to hold on tightly to these feelings or thoughts. Letting go is not abandonment, but acceptance and understanding that everything in life changes. When we understand this, we will no longer feel pressured to hold on to things that cannot be changed. Letting go is a gentle act, not rushed, not hurried, but a release, a deep realization that everything can flow away, and we just need to let it go. The Buddha taught that when our hearts are full of worries and fears, we cannot clearly see the truth about life. These thoughts are like a layer of clouds obscuring the sunlight, preventing our hearts from shining. But when we learn to let go, the clouds will dissipate, and our hearts will return to clarity and calmness. It is like removing a heavy coat. After shedding that burden, we will feel much lighter. Letting go does not mean giving up or no longer caring about the important people and things in life. In fact, letting go is a way we can love ourselves and others more fully. When we let go of unrealistic expectations and self-imposed pressures, we will find relaxation and peace. When we no longer worry about controlling everything, we will realize that life becomes much lighter, and relationships, work, and plans become easier when we no longer try too hard. One of the easiest ways to start letting go is through the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness is the ability to live fully in each moment, focusing on what is happening right now without letting the mind wander into the past or future. When we practice mindfulness, we not only let go of negative thoughts and emotions, but also begin to view everything with a more serene perspective. Emotions like worry, fear, or anger will no longer sweep us away because we have learned to observe them without reacting to them. The Buddha also taught that when the mind is pure, we will see everything in life more clearly. Problems no longer become burdens, and we can view them with a calm attitude, without haste or fear. By letting go, we not only free ourselves, but also bring peace to those around us. When we live with a light heart, we will radiate positive energy, making life more beautiful. A small story about a woman named Lan is an example of letting go. Lan was always worried about the future of herself and her family. She constantly clung to worries about finances, work, and relationships. One day, she began practicing meditation and realized that she had spent too much time worrying about things she couldn't control. She began learning to let go, to live in the present, and to feel peace in each moment. Gradually, she found life becoming lighter, relationships becoming more harmonious, and she could focus on what was important without feeling pressure. Letting go is a process, and it cannot happen overnight. But when we begin, little by little, to remove the burdens in our hearts, we will notice that life becomes easier, lighter, and more lovable. Learn to let go, to rediscover peace in your soul, to live fully in each moment of life, and to keep your heart light and calm. In life, everyone goes through hurt, sorrow, and inevitable frustrations. We may be hurt by others' words and actions, or we may create pain for ourselves. But when these hurts are kept tightly in our hearts, they will make our souls heavy and tired. And at that moment, we are not only affected by those who have hurt us, but also by the pain in our soul that we cannot free ourselves from. So how can we free ourselves from these negative emotions? The Buddha taught that one of the paths to freedom and peace of mind is forgiveness. Forgiveness, as the Buddha teaches, is not weakness or overlooking the wrongdoings of others, but a courageous act of the heart. Forgiveness is a way to free ourselves from negative emotions so that we are not controlled by those hurts. Forgiveness makes our souls lighter, clearer, and more peaceful, because when we no longer hold grudges in our hearts, we are no longer dragged down by these emotions in life. When we do not forgive, we are like holding a heavy stone in our hand and carrying it around. Each time we think of the person who hurt us, the stone becomes heavier, and it gradually makes our hearts more burdened. But when we decide to forgive, we release the stone, letting it no longer occupy our hearts. Forgiveness is an act of letting go, not to forget, but to stop letting those hurts dominate and cause us more pain. The Buddha taught that when we forgive, we not only free others from our anger, but also free ourselves. Forgiveness helps us overcome pain, hatred, and keeps our soul from being entangled in negative emotions. It is a true act of courage because forgiveness does not mean it is easy, but it is the courage to overcome pain and seek peace in our own hearts. You may wonder, why should I forgive the person who has hurt me? The answer is that when you don't forgive, you are the one who suffers the most. The negative emotions you hold in your heart won't make the person who hurt you take responsibility, but they will make you bear the pain, anger, and stress. Forgiveness is not about letting the other person off the hook, but about freeing yourself from those negative emotions and moving forward in life with a lighter soul. A simple example is the story of a woman named Lan. Lan had lived for a long time in anger and resentment toward a close friend, feeling betrayed. Every time she thought about it, Lan felt pain and discomfort, as if the wound in her heart had never healed. One day, she decided to attend a mindfulness course where she learned how to let go of negative emotions and forgive that friend. Lan realized that the anger and hurt only made her more miserable, and forgiveness was the only way to free herself from those heavy emotions. After forgiving, she felt much lighter, and her relationship with her friend improved. This is proof that forgiveness is not only an action for others, but a way to free yourself from negative emotions. The Buddha taught that in this life, everything is impermanent, and anger and resentment are just temporary emotions. When we understand that everything can change and nothing is eternal, we will find it easier to let go of negative emotions. Forgiveness is not about holding on to hurt, but about relaxing and allowing peace to fill the heart. When we forgive, we will experience freedom and lightness in the soul and can live fully in each moment of life. One of the important lessons in life is learning to forgive. Forgiveness is not giving up, but an act full of courage and self-love. Forgiveness helps us not to let hurt dominate our lives, helps us avoid being swept up in negative emotions, and instead, we can live with compassion, gentleness, and peace in our hearts. When you find it hard to forgive, remember that forgiveness does not mean you have to accept the wrongdoings of others. It means you are freeing yourself from negative emotions. Forgiveness helps you release the heaviness in your heart, allowing you to move forward with a clearer and stronger heart. As the Buddha taught, forgiveness is an act of wisdom and compassion, the path to tranquility and freedom in life. Try being brave and forgiving, and you will realize that it is you who are freed. It is you who find peace in your heart. Forgiveness is not only an act for others, but it is the freedom you give yourself. When you forgive, you open up a new space in your soul for love and peace to flow in, making life lighter and more meaningful. We often seek clear answers, explanations for everything happening around us. We want to understand, want to know, and sometimes want to resolve the doubts in our minds immediately. But in reality, there are times when stillness is the greatest gift we can receive, and not everything always needs an explanation or clarity. I remember a small story about a friend of mine named Min, a person who always lived with many unanswered questions inside. She was a very intelligent person, always asking questions and finding ways to solve every problem. But one day, when she faced a difficult event in life, a loss she could not have anticipated, she could not find an explanation or clarity for what had happened. Min fell into an internal crisis. She tried every way to explain the loss, to find the cause, to understand why it happened to her. She tortured herself, tormenting herself over things she couldn't change. But one day, in a quiet afternoon, Min stopped. She didn't try to explain everything anymore. She just sat quietly, listening to the wind blowing through the natural sounds of life around her. And in that moment, Min realized that not everything needs an explanation. Sometimes, stillness is the greatest gift we can give ourselves. That stillness is not silence born from avoidance or trying to hide emotions. It is inner silence, the moment when we stop, allowing ourselves to feel everything without rushing to solve it. It is when we pause to breathe, to listen, to feel that we still exist in this world, no matter how chaotic everything may be. Stillness is not the absence of words, but the space where we reconnect with ourselves, finding peace in our soul. In those moments, there is no need for clarity, no need to search for exact answers. In reality, there are many questions in life that we will never find clear answers to. And that is perfectly normal. Life doesn't always require an explanation or a straight path. Sometimes, all we need is to accept what is happening and allow ourselves to live fully in each moment. I remember one morning when I sat by the window looking outside and the first rays of the new day lit up everything. That gentle feeling made me think about stillness in life. Sometimes we are too hasty, too busy with thoughts and plans. But in fact, if we take a moment to stop, simply breathe and feel, we will realize that there are beautiful things that don't need to be explained or fully understood. They just need to be felt with the heart. There are times when we don't need to explain or justify every action or thought of ours. Life does not always demand us to be clear, and sometimes understanding is the deepest thing. Stillness helps us realize that not everything needs a reason. Stillness is a connection with ourselves, with our emotions, with the essence of life, and with things that cannot be explained by words. In every moment of stillness, we find freedom. Freedom is not escaping suffering, but the ability to see and face it without fear. Freedom is not having all the answers, but living with the unanswered questions. Stillness helps us understand that life doesn't always have to be explained, and sometimes that very fact is the peace we are seeking. Like the peaceful moments in the early morning before the sun rises, when the world around us is still asleep. Stillness is a part of life that we cannot do without. It is not absolute silence, but a space where we reconnect with ourselves, where we realize that there are things more important than explanations. And it is in those moments that we truly feel the lightness of life, the tranquility in our soul. So, in difficult times, when there are no answers, try to turn to stillness. It is the priceless gift that life offers. And in it, you will find peace without needing to explain or understand everything. Let everything unfold naturally, allowing yourself to live fully in each moment, without rushing or worrying about what is to come. Stillness is the key to peace in the soul, the wonderful gift we all deserve to receive. In each person, we all carry wounds, memories that cannot be erased from the past. These may be mistakes, losses, hurtful words, or events that we feel we cannot overcome. We carry them like backpacks full of stones, walking through life without realizing that these burdens are slowing us down, making it impossible to feel freedom and peace in life. But when we learn to let go, we realize that what has happened cannot be changed, but we can learn how not to let it control our lives. The Buddha teaches that letting go is not about giving up everything, but learning not to let the past affect the present. The past has passed. It only remains in memory. And although we cannot change what has happened, we can choose how to perceive and face it. When we let go, we no longer allow painful memories, regrets, or unpleasant events from the past to control our current lives. Letting go is the realization that what has passed is just a road we have already traveled, and we cannot go back to change it, but we can change how we live with it. There are things we cannot control, and sometimes this makes us feel helpless and suffering. But the Buddha teaches that when we let go of control, we truly become free. Letting go is not surrender, but acceptance and understanding that things we cannot change do not need to be worried about or regretted. When we learn to let go, we will no longer let the past or uncontrollable events dominate our lives. We will find peace in the present and learn how to live fully with what is happening, rather than being swept away by what has passed. Letting go helps us realize that life is not always as we want it, and not everything always goes according to plan. However, the important thing is that we can accept the changes, failures, and challenges that life brings, so they do not drag us into the spiral of pain. The Buddha pointed out that every moment of life is an opportunity to change, to learn, and to grow. And only when we let go of the burdens in our hearts can we embrace new opportunities and lessons. You may be finding it difficult to let go of what has happened, the wounds you have endured. But remember, letting go does not mean forgetting or denying what has happened, but it means not allowing them to control your soul. Letting go is freeing yourself from unnecessary burdens so that you can walk forward with a lighter soul, so that you can embrace life more fully. In the process of letting go, you may feel resistance, hesitation, and even pain. But these feelings are signs that you are gradually stepping out of the shadow of the past. When you allow yourself to feel without judging these emotions, you will gradually realize that you can master yourself, control your emotions, and not let external things affect your inner peace. A story about a woman named Lan can help you better understand this process. Lan was a person who always carried sadness from a painful breakup in the past. She couldn't forget the hurtful words, the feeling of emptiness after that relationship ended. These memories haunted her, preventing her from living fully in the present. But after a long struggle with these emotions, Lan realized that the hurts of the past could not be changed, and living in the past only caused her more suffering. She decided to join a meditation course, learning to live mindfully and starting to let go of the painful memories. Gradually, she realized that those wounds were just a part of life, and they no longer controlled her. She learned to love herself, found peace, and lived fully with each moment of the present. Lan's story is proof that letting go helps us free ourselves from negative emotions, helping us realize that we don't have to live forever in the past. When we let go, we no longer allow those wounds to cloud the joy and happiness in life. We can learn to love ourselves, take care of our souls, and continue moving forward with a light heart, free of burdens. The Buddha teaches that life is impermanent and everything changes. When we learn to let go, we no longer get stuck in things we cannot change, and we will see that life becomes lighter and more peaceful. Letting go is how we free ourselves from the constraints of the past to live fully in the present and embrace the future with peace and hope. So, remember that letting go is not giving up, but a way for you to realize that what has happened cannot be changed, but you can learn not to let it control your life. When you let go, you will feel lightness, freedom in your soul, and life will become brighter than ever. No one has ever felt exhaustion. There are times when we feel like we're drowning in a sea of work, worries, fears about the future, and unfinished business. This feeling of exhaustion clings to us, making us feel drained, as if our strength and spirit have been exhausted. But in reality, this feeling of exhaustion is not because we are weak, but because we have not learned how to live peacefully with ourselves. There is a story that I often remember. It is the story of a friend of mine named Lan. She was a very active person, always busy with work, taking care of her family, and never stopped striving. Every day, Lan tried to accomplish everything she set out to do, from work at the company to household chores, caring for her children, and maintaining friendships. Even though she did her best, it still felt like nothing was enough, and the exhaustion kept piling up more and more. One time, after a long week of nonstop work, Lan felt so tired that she could hardly breathe. She felt like she was drained, with no energy left to continue. She sat down in the living room, looking out the window, and reflected on what had happened. At that moment, she remembered a teaching of the Buddha that she had read a long time ago. Do not seek happiness outside, but find it within your heart. She wondered, perhaps she was tired not because of work or the things around her, but because she had never taken the time to listen to and take care of herself. Lan began to realize that she had neglected herself all this time. She had always chased after tasks, responsibilities, forgetting that in order to give fully, she had to take care of and love herself. She didn't allow herself to stop, didn't allow herself to rest, fearing that if she did, everything would be left behind. But when she stopped and truly reflected, she saw that exhaustion wasn't because she was weak or incapable, but because she hadn't found peace in her own life. The feeling of exhaustion is something that all of us will face. It is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of imbalance in life. When we don't know how to listen to our body and soul, when we focus only on work and external things and forget to live peacefully with ourselves, we easily fall into a state of exhaustion and depletion. This feeling of exhaustion is a reminder for us to stop for a moment, to look inward, and find peace within ourselves. I too have gone through a time like that. When work and life pushed me into an endless cycle, I also felt tired and exhausted. I tried to do everything well, but sometimes I felt like I was lost. At that time, I began to realize that it wasn't because I was weak that I felt tired, but because I didn't know how to live peacefully. I didn't know how to stop and feel life, and I didn't love myself enough. So, whenever I feel tired, instead of forcing myself to continue, I allow myself to stop. I find a quiet space, breathe deeply, and just listen to my breath. I remind myself that nothing is more important than peace in my soul, that I don't have to do everything immediately, and I can relax and love myself without feeling guilty. It is in these moments that I find new energy, and the feeling of exhaustion gradually fades. Living peacefully is not about doing nothing at all, but knowing how to balance life, knowing when to stop, and knowing how to take care of the soul as we care for those we love. Living peacefully is when we live in the present without excessive worry about the past or future, and accept that life cannot be perfect. But those peaceful moments in each day are what truly matter. When we know how to live peacefully with ourselves, we will no longer feel tired because we have learned to love and take care of ourselves. And then we can truly live fully, work with all our passion and energy, and bring joy to ourselves and those around us. Exhaustion will no longer be a burden, but just a gentle reminder that life needs moments to stop, to love, and to care for ourselves. So if today you feel tired, take a moment, breathe deeply, and allow yourself to rest. Remember that tiredness is not because you are weak, but because you are in need of finding peace in your life. Each of us must face worries, anxieties, frustrations, or negative emotions. Whether they are the small things in daily life or large challenges, they can make our soul uneasy, sometimes making us feel like we can't breathe amid the waves of emotions around us. But according to the teachings of the Buddha, a peaceful mind is not one without worries, but one where when worries come, we no longer run away from them. We do not let them control our lives. In truth, When we deeply understand the nature of worries and peace in Buddhism, we will realize that peace is not the absence of difficulties, but the ability to face them calmly. A peaceful mind, according to the Buddha, is not a soul that is never disturbed, free from worries or anxieties. In real life, who among us has not gone through moments of heaviness in the heart, moments of stress, suffering, or confusion? These are natural emotions, an inseparable part of human life. But what's important is that a peaceful mind is awareness, the recognition that when worries come, we do not let them sweep us away. We do not let them seize our heart and mind. We can feel the worries, but we do not let them control us. The Buddha taught that worries are a part of life, like clouds in the sky. These clouds may come and go, but they do not always obscure the sky forever. This is like the worries in our hearts. They may appear and temporarily cover the soul, but when we know how to face them and are not afraid, they will gradually dissipate. The Buddha does not teach us to avoid worries, but teaches us how to live with them peacefully. When we no longer run away, no longer fear worries, we will learn how to live in harmony with them, and from that, we will find true peace. We often think that peace is a state where there is no suffering, no pain. But in reality, peace is the ability to maintain our soul, no matter what the circumstances are. When we learn how to face uncomfortable emotions without overreacting, without letting them drag us, we will find that peace is not a place we need to seek, but awareness and mindfulness in each moment. For example, on a busy day, when we feel tired and stressed, worries may appear, causing our mind to become chaotic. That is worry. But instead of letting it take over, we can stop for a moment, breathe deeply, and simply observe those emotions without judging or criticizing. Mindfulness, being aware in each moment, is the key to preventing us from getting caught up in these negative emotions. When we don't react habitually to worries, but simply feel them without letting them control us, we will find peace even in the most difficult times. When facing worries, it does not mean that we must abandon our emotions or try to push them away. The Buddha teaches that all emotions are valuable and are part of our spiritual practice. We don't need to run away from frustration, anger, or disappointment, but simply recognize that they are natural and temporary emotions. When we do not try to control or change these emotions, they will no longer be a burden. Instead, they become valuable lessons to help us understand ourselves better and the desires, fears, and expectations we have. This is a shift in how we view suffering and peace. When we understand that suffering is just a part of the flow of life, we will no longer fear its appearance. Instead, we will face it with calmness and compassion, and from that, we will find freedom. Freedom here is not the absence of suffering, but freedom from the control of that suffering. The story of a woman named Lan can be a great example of this. Lan once lived in anxiety and fear about the future. She always felt tired and stressed by the important decisions in life, worrying that everything wouldn't turn out as she hoped. One day, she decided to join a meditation course and learn mindfulness. Lan learned that those anxieties were just temporary thoughts and emotions. She learned to stop, observe those worries without letting them control her soul. From there, she found peace in each moment, even when life wasn't always as she wished. When we stop running from suffering, we will gradually learn to live fully with life, unaffected by difficulties and challenges. A peaceful mind is not a place without difficulties, but a calmness within every time difficulty arises. This is the wisdom that the Buddha wanted to teach us. When we understand this, life will become lighter and more peaceful because we know how to live fully in each moment, not letting suffering control our hearts. There are many times when we feel our hearts disturbed, as if caught in the waves of negative emotions: anger, sadness, anxiety, or fear. These emotions make our minds tired, restless, and hard to find peace. However, According to the Buddha's teachings, the transformation of the mind is the path to peace in the heart, helping us not to be swept away by negative emotions, but instead turn them into deep understanding and peace. When the mind is disturbed, the important thing is to return to ourselves, stop in the present moment, and observe the emotions that arise. Instead of reacting habitually, running away, or trying to avoid these emotions, the Buddha teaches us to face and accept them gently. When we return to ourselves, we can realize that everything is temporary, and the negative emotions we are feeling are not a fixed part of us, but psychological states that can change. This awareness helps us not to let them control or dominate our lives. The transformation of the mind is not about completely eliminating negative emotions, but learning to embrace them calmly without letting them take away our self-control. When anger arises, we don't need to suppress or resist it. Instead, we just need to observe the emotion, feel it in our body and mind without reacting. Remember that anger is just a part of us in that moment. And when we become aware of this, we will no longer be controlled by it. One way to transform negative emotions is through mindfulness. Mindfulness helps us live fully in the present, to clearly recognize each emotion, thought, and reaction without judgment. For example, when we feel anger, instead of letting the emotion overpower reason and lead to thoughtless actions, we can pause, breathe deeply, and observe the anger in our body. Take a deep breath, then another, and in the process, we will gradually realize that this emotion will pass, and we can choose not to let it affect us. The Buddha taught that each emotion can change, like clouds in the sky. When we observe and realize that nothing is permanent, we will easily let go of negative emotions. The Buddha teaches us that if we hold tightly to these emotions, they will become a burden on our hearts. But when we understand that everything changes, we will no longer cling to them, allowing them to dissolve like clouds drifting across the sky. A simple but profound story can illustrate the transformation of the mind. There was a healer in the village, and whenever anyone came to him for treatment, he always began by meditating for a while. He said, "If I cannot master my emotions, I cannot help others." The healer understood that his mind needed to be calm and undisturbed to view the patient's condition clearly and accurately. Maintaining this calmness and mindfulness helped him transform any negative emotions into understanding, compassion, and peace. This not only helped him heal others, but also allowed him to maintain peace in his heart. The transformation of the mind is not an easy task, especially when we have to face strong emotions such as pain, anger, or disappointment. However, each time we face and do not run away, we will realize that we understand ourselves better. Negative emotions are no longer something to fear, but rather opportunities for us to learn, to understand ourselves and life more deeply. What matters is that we do not let these emotions control our lives, but instead learn how to transform them into understanding and peace. When we learn to transform negative emotions, we will also realize that peace is not a destination that we have to seek far away. Peace is returning to ourselves, living fully in each moment, not being swept away by emotions, thoughts, or external circumstances. The Buddha taught that only when our hearts are pure, not disturbed by worries, can we truly live happily and peacefully. The feeling of peace is not an eternal state without disturbance, but the ability to face the upheavals of life calmly and mindfully. Each time negative emotions appear, we will realize that they are just a part of life, a part of the learning and growing process. And when we accept that everything is impermanent, we will be able to see the change, the transformation occurring within ourselves. So, remember that the transformation of the mind is the ability to accept negative emotions without letting them control us. It is the awareness that everything in life can change, and we can choose to view them with calmness, compassion, and mindfulness. When we do this, we will find peace in each moment, not letting suffering disturb our souls. In modern life, full of busyness and haste, we often forget that the simplest things can bring the greatest peace to our souls. Mindfulness, with all its stillness and deep awareness in each moment, is not something too far away or difficult. It is simply being fully present in the everyday actions we do, but with a different mindset, a peaceful, gentle, and mindful mindset. I remember one morning when my friend Lan and I were walking around the park near our house. Every morning, we start the new day with a light walk, and on a beautiful morning like that, I realized something. When we are not rushing, not thinking about what's to come, but just focusing on each step, each breath, every step becomes meaningful. All worries and stress vanish, leaving only gentle, peaceful steps. We no longer think about work or the things we have to do that day, but we simply live fully in each moment. That's mindfulness practice. And I realized that this simple act helped our hearts become much lighter and calmer. Mindfulness is not something grand or complicated. It is simply being truly present in each simple action we do every day, like when eating, breathing, or walking. For example, when eating, instead of eating quickly, thinking about work or worries, we just need to focus on each bite, feeling the taste, color, and texture of the food. The feeling when we eat a delicious meal, slowly savoring each dish, isn't that one of the simplest joys of life? I have a friend named Min. She is always busy with work and family, and sometimes feels like she can never fully live each moment because she is always worrying about unfinished tasks. One day, I advised Min to try practicing mindfulness through a simple action like eating. At first, Min felt strange and unaccustomed because she often ate hurriedly, thinking about other things. But when she tried to slow down, pay attention to each bite, feeling each grain of rice in her mouth, she was surprised. The feeling of being full didn't just come from eating enough, but from fully experiencing each dish, understanding the appreciation and gratitude for what she had. Another day, Min went for a walk in the park, and she began to focus on each step. With slow, steady steps and regular breathing, she felt like she was connecting with nature, with herself. There was no sense of rush or exhaustion, but instead peace, vitality in each moment. She began to feel a distinct difference in her soul, as if the worries had been soothed, and instead there was a sense of tranquility and peace. Mindfulness helps us live more fully with this life. When we practice mindfulness, we no longer have to race against time, worry about the past or the future, but simply be present in the moment. Only when we are truly present can we feel all the beauty of this life. Each step, each breath, the sound of birds singing or leaves rustling becomes vivid and meaningful. Mindfulness is also a way to find peace in our souls. When we focus on each action, we are also helping our souls become quieter. Worries no longer dominate our minds. Instead, we focus on the present, on what is happening around us. Each moment becomes more precious, and we learn to appreciate the simple things that we may have overlooked before. Practicing mindfulness does not have to be something grand. It is simply paying attention to the actions we do every day, but with a different mindset, a mindset of awareness and full presence. When we eat, we eat. When we walk, we walk. When we breathe, we breathe. This is how we live with ourselves, living fully with this life. Perhaps in the most tiring moments, it is stopping, practicing mindfulness, and living fully in each moment that is the healing remedy for the soul. When we know how to focus on each simple action, we will realize that life does not always need to be rushed, but when we live according to what is happening, we will find peace within ourselves. So, let's start practicing mindfulness from the small things in daily life. It is a wonderful gift you can give to yourself to live fully, peacefully, and more happily. In life, we often set expectations and hopes for ourselves, for others, and for life. We want things to be a certain way, and when those expectations are not met, we feel disappointed and hurt. But is letting go of those expectations and desires giving up, quitting? No. The Buddha teaches that letting go is not giving up, but freeing ourselves from things that hurt our souls, a way to make a person stronger, because letting go is an act of wisdom and freedom. When we let go, we are not giving up on dreams, not giving up on hopes, but letting go of rigid desires and unrealistic expectations. In life, we often set goals and expectations that are too big, forgetting that everything changes, everything is impermanent. Not meeting expectations does not mean failure, but is a part of life, a part of the learning and growing process. When we do not let go of those desires, we easily fall into disappointment and suffering. But when we learn to let go, we will realize that peace does not come from things going the way we want, but from accepting what comes, what cannot be changed, and living fully with them. The Buddha teaches that life is impermanent, and all that we desire or expect can change, sometimes not as we expect. The power of letting go is the ability to accept change, so our souls are no longer caught in disappointment and frustration when things don't go according to plan. Letting go does not mean giving up or abandoning our dreams, but freeing ourselves from the pressures and psychological burdens we impose on ourselves. When we let go of unrealistic expectations, we will feel lightness and freedom in our souls. Think of a simple example in life. Every time we place too many expectations on a relationship, thinking that others must act the way we want, we can easily feel disappointed when they don't meet those expectations. When that expectation is unmet, we feel hurt, angry, and abandoned. But when we let go of those unrealistic expectations, we will learn to accept others as they are, not forcing or requiring them to change to fit us. Letting go here is freeing the soul from illusions and control, so we can love freely and not be hurt. Letting go not only brings lightness, but also helps us become stronger. When we let go of unrealistic expectations, we are no longer burdened by disappointment. We become free, not bound by things we cannot control. This helps us face life with a stable and calm mindset. The power of letting go is the ability to live fully with what is happening, rather than clinging to things that cannot be changed. A simple story about a woman named Lan can illustrate the power of letting go. Lan was someone who always placed many expectations on her work and relationships. She always wanted others to act the way she thought was right, and if not, she felt sad and disappointed. But after a long time living in that feeling, Lan realized that she could not change others, and she could not control every situation. She decided to join a meditation course and learn to let go of those expectations. Gradually, Lan felt that she no longer cared about things that couldn't be changed. She learned to love, help others without forcing them to meet her expectations. She became lighter, calmer, and loved life more. When we let go, we are not giving up on dreams or hopes, but learning to free ourselves from the psychological burdens created by unrealistic expectations. The Buddha teaches that letting go is an act of wisdom, recognizing that we cannot control everything, but we can control how we react to changes and challenges in life. Letting go does not mean surrender, but a spiritual freedom, the awareness that everything changes and we can live in harmony with it. Letting go is liberation. When we are no longer hurt by expectations and desires, we will find that life becomes lighter. We can love ourselves and others without expecting too much from them. We can live a complete life, not because everything happens as we want, but because we know how to love, accept, and live in harmony with the present. Therefore, letting go is not giving up, but a liberation from things that hurt the soul. When we let go, we become stronger because we no longer let expectations control our lives. We will learn to love and live fully with what is present, and from there find peace in the soul. In each moment of life, we often feel our soul being swept away by waves of anger, anxiety, or fear. These emotions sometimes come quickly and strongly, making us feel as though we are caught in a whirlpool with no way out. However, if we observe nature, we will realize that it is a valuable lesson in peace and gentleness, that we can learn and apply in our own lives. Imagine a calm lake in the early morning. The water still and clear enough to see the bottom. There are no waves, no wind, just absolute stillness. The surface of the lake is a wonderful image of peace. When our soul is like that lake, undisturbed by negative thoughts or emotions, we can perceive life clearly and peacefully. A peaceful soul does not mean the absence of emotions or sadness, but the ability to maintain calmness, even when waves of anxiety and anger may come at any time. The fallen petals from a tree also provide a beautiful and meaningful image of peace. The petals fall gently to the ground without resistance, without regret, without struggle. Each petal, though small, knows that its purpose is to come and then go as a natural part of life. The falling petal is acceptance. It does not try to resist the natural laws of life, but instead, it gently lets itself go with the flow of life. It is in this letting go that the petal finds freedom, lightness, and peace. For each of us, letting go like the falling petal is a lesson in gentleness and non-attachment. When we do not try to hold on to what is not ours, when we accept change and impermanence, we will find peace within ourselves. It is peace that comes from acceptance, from knowing that everything comes and goes. And the important thing is not to let these things hurt our souls. Another meaningful image is the gentle breeze blowing through the leaves. The breeze is not in a hurry. It does not try to change anything. It simply blows through, lightly passing over the ground and the leaves, bringing freshness and coolness. In the same way, our souls need to learn to live lightly, like the breeze, without being too concerned, without trying too hard. When we do not chase after desires and expectations, when we do not get caught in negative emotions, we will be like the breeze, free and peaceful, passing through without obstruction. These images from nature reflect a natural and gentle way of living, not caught up in anger or anxiety. When we learn to live like the lake, like the falling petal, like the passing breeze, we will realize that peace is not a state without suffering, but the ability to remain calm amidst the storms of emotion. Peace is spiritual freedom, the ability to face changes, challenges, without letting them disrupt our lives. The Buddha teaches that to find peace in life, we do not need to avoid or run away from unpleasant emotions, but we need to learn how to face them and not let them control us. Peace is being at ease within ourselves, being able to view and accept the emotions and challenges of life with gentleness, without overreacting or letting them rob us of the freedom in our souls. We can learn from nature how to live more gently, like the calm lake, like the falling petal, like the passing breeze. These images not only illustrate peace, but also remind us of freedom and acceptance. When we know how to let go of what is unnecessary, when we learn to live in harmony with ourselves and with life, we will feel peace in our souls, the stillness and serenity that nature has taught us. So learn to live like the calm lake, like the gently falling petal, like the free breeze. Let your soul be nourished by the lessons from nature, and from that, you will find peace, freedom, and lightness that each of us truly deserves. Happiness and suffering always go hand in hand, like two sides of the same coin. We often think that happiness is something we have to seek, while suffering is something we must avoid. But if we truly listen to the Buddha's teachings, we will realize that suffering is not something bad, but just a part of life. And from suffering, happiness can arise if we know how to face and overcome it with compassion and mindfulness. I remember a story about a friend named Min, a person who had to face huge challenges and pain in life. Min was a very strong person, but life was not always gentle with her. After going through a bitter breakup, Min felt as though everything was falling apart. She felt pain, emptiness, and seemed unable to find a way forward. Each day, Min felt as though she was living in a box, unable to breathe, unable to escape from that heavy, painful feeling. During a conversation with me, Min shared that she couldn't understand why life treated her this way. She felt very unfair and very hurt. I remember telling Min, suffering is not the end, Min. It is just a part of each person's life journey. Suffering is inevitable, but how we face it determines our happiness. Indeed, the Buddha taught that suffering is part of life. We cannot live without moments of sadness, disappointment, or pain. It is natural, because in this world, everything is born and perishes. Suffering is not a bad thing, but a lesson, an opportunity for us to grow. When we accept suffering, we will understand that it is just a small part of a long life. It comes and will go. And the important thing is that we know how to face it and let it go. Min began to learn about mindfulness and practiced it in her daily life. Whenever she felt sad, she didn't try to avoid or deny those feelings. Instead, she learned to accept them, to feel them without resistance. Min would sit down, listen to each feeling in her body, breathe deeply and slowly, allowing her soul to be at peace. She realized that when she no longer resisted suffering, when she no longer drowned in negative thoughts and emotions, her soul gradually found peace. Mindfulness was the tool that helped Min overcome those painful moments. When she lived in the present moment, when she didn't let her mind be swept away by the past or future, Min felt peace even in suffering. She began to understand that suffering is not the enemy, but a companion on the path to growth. And it is in these moments that happiness begins to arise from gratitude and acceptance. One evening, Min and I were sitting and talking under the dim light, and she shared that, although the pain had not completely disappeared, she felt that she had changed. I no longer feel afraid to face negative emotions. I understand that suffering will come and it will go, and I can live peacefully in each moment, whether in pain or happiness, Min said. Those words made me feel the great change in her. Indeed, when we know how to face suffering and live with mindfulness, we will see that happiness is not a goal to be achieved, but a state of mind that we can find within ourselves, right in the simplest moments of life. We often think that happiness is when everything goes smoothly, without suffering or difficulties. But in reality, happiness comes from knowing how to let go, from accepting what we cannot change, and learning to love ourselves regardless of our circumstances. Suffering and happiness are not two separate things. They are truly connected. It is through suffering that we learn to appreciate the happy moments. And happiness also comes from the ability to face and overcome the challenges in life. This is a valuable lesson that life and the Buddha teach us. Suffering is not a bad thing, but a part of our journey. And when we learn how to let go, live with mindfulness, we will realize that happiness is not something distant. It is always within us, in each step, in each breath, in the moments we live fully with ourselves. Happiness is when we know how to live peacefully, not clinging to the past or fearing the future, but simply being present in the now, accepting all that comes and goes. In every life, pain is inevitable. It could be the sorrow of loss, failure, hurt in relationships, or unforeseen challenges. But pain, whether big or small, always brings a profound lesson about life and growth. We can choose to face it or run away from it. However, according to the Buddha's teachings, how we face pain is the key to healing. Instead of fearing, running away, or denying it, we can learn to embrace and understand the pain. And it is through this process that the pain will gradually fade away. The Buddha taught that suffering is an inseparable part of life. But suffering is not something bad or impossible to overcome. Suffering is a part of life, like light and darkness, a part of the law of impermanence. Suffering comes, but it will also pass, just like the storms in life. However, the important thing is not that we avoid or deny suffering, but how we face it, how we perceive and understand our emotions when faced with pain. Instead of running away from pain, we can learn to face and feel it fully. To do this, we need to return to ourselves, to find stillness in our souls. The Buddha taught that when we are calm and mindful in each moment, we will not be ruled by pain. When we realize that sadness or suffering is just a part of life, we will no longer fear or resist it. Pain will no longer control us when we no longer fear it, when we do not let ourselves be swept into negative emotions, but let it pass like clouds. In reality, every time pain arises, instead of running away or trying to push it away, we can stop and observe it. Let the feeling of pain naturally exist in the body and mind. Feel each breath, each heartbeat, each thought swirling in the head. This does not mean we must drown in the pain, but that we are creating a space for the emotion to exist freely without being forced or suppressed. When we do not resist it, we will realize that this pain does not have the power to take over our souls. It is through this understanding and acceptance that we can free ourselves from the pain. You might ask, how can I face pain without fear? The answer is, we learn to live with the present, with what is happening right now, without letting worries about the future or regrets about the past dominate. Mindfulness is the way that helps us recognize and live fully with our emotions without being swept away by them. When we live in the present, we no longer fear painful emotions because we know that they are just temporary waves on the sea of life, and they will pass. To illustrate this, think of a wave on the ocean. Waves come and go. No wave lasts forever. Big waves can stir up the sea and create disturbances, but when the waves pass, the sea returns to calm. Pain is just like that. It comes strongly, sometimes shaking our souls, but it does not last forever. As long as we do not try to fight it, it will fade away by itself. Therefore, pain is not something to fear. When we learn to live with it, we will realize that pain is just a part of life, not an enemy, but a valuable lesson. The Buddha taught that when we understand the nature of impermanence, we will no longer fear facing suffering. We will understand that everything will pass, and suffering is no different. Only when we accept life's changes, when we no longer cling to what has passed or worry about what has not yet come, can we live in peace and happiness. Pain will naturally dissipate when we no longer fear it, when we no longer let ourselves be caught in those emotions, but instead perceive and understand them. This is the liberation that the Buddha teaches, not to run away from suffering, but to face it and understand that suffering is only a part of life, and we can overcome it with peace in our hearts. Finally, pain is an invisible teacher that helps us grow. When we learn to face it gently, without fear, we will discover valuable lessons about resilience, love, and acceptance. What we feel in pain is not just suffering, but an opportunity for us to become stronger, wiser, and love ourselves more. In this life, we often want everything to go our way, from work, relationships, to plans and dreams. We always try to control every situation, trying to perfect everything around us. However, reality shows that life is not always perfect as we want. It is in those moments that letting go and acceptance become the key to finding peace and lightness in the soul. The Buddha teaches that acceptance is the first step in the journey of letting go. When we accept that life cannot always be perfect, that everything changes, and that we are not perfect, our soul will be freed from burdens. We will no longer feel disappointment, anger, or sadness whenever something doesn't go as expected. Acceptance does not mean giving up or quitting, but the awareness that everything changes and nothing in life is fixed or eternal. When we accept impermanence, we also open our hearts to embrace everything that is happening in this life. You may wonder, how can we accept what cannot be changed without feeling helpless? The answer is, when we learn to live in mindfulness, when we bring our minds back to the present, we will no longer be swept away by worries, regrets about the past, or fear of the future. The Buddha teaches that peace comes from being mindful in every moment. When we live fully with what is happening, we will understand that each situation, each challenge is part of the journey, and we cannot change them, but we can choose how to respond to them. Think of a road full of twists and turns. You cannot control every turn, but you can choose how to pass through them. If you accept that the road will be bumpy at times, you will not feel anxious or disappointed when facing difficulties. You will continue on with calmness and faith that every difficulty can be overcome. Accepting imperfection is freedom, because then you no longer have to fight with life. Instead, you learn to harmonize with it. Letting go can only happen when we accept. When we accept something, we no longer resist or cling to it. Instead of trying to change what cannot be changed, we learn to love ourselves in its imperfection. Letting go is not about giving up, but about freeing ourselves from unrealistic expectations, accepting that things will not always go according to plan. Letting go is the liberation of the soul from burdens we have created ourselves. A simple example is when we face loss, such as the passing of a loved one. At first, the pain may be immense because we cannot accept that the person is gone forever. But when we begin to accept that reality, when we understand that death is a part of the impermanence of life, we will learn to let go of sadness and regret. This does not mean forgetting the person, but accepting the loss and finding ways to continue living a meaningful life, knowing that this pain is temporary and life continues with new opportunities. Acceptance is not only about big things like loss or failure, but also about learning to accept ourselves. When we accept our mistakes, flaws, and limitations, we no longer hurt ourselves with negative thoughts. We will learn to love ourselves and treat ourselves with gentleness and compassion. Accepting ourselves is the first step in the healing journey, because when we stop judging ourselves, we open our hearts to receive love and peace. In this process, meditation and mindfulness will be powerful tools to help us achieve acceptance and letting go. When we practice meditation, we learn to calm the mind, temporarily setting aside worries and confusing thoughts, focusing on the present moment. When the mind becomes still, we can realize that negative emotions or difficulties in life are not something to fear, but are temporary states of mind, like clouds passing through the sky. Acceptance of impermanence is recognizing that everything will change. And when we no longer cling to what is past or worry about what has yet to come, we will find peace in the present. So, acceptance is the first step to letting go. And when we learn acceptance, we will no longer be caught up in expectations or anxieties, but instead, we will find freedom in the soul. Letting go is not about giving up, but freeing the soul from what is unnecessary. When we accept the imperfections of life, when we let go of the burdens of the past and the future, we will live more fully, love ourselves more, and experience peace in every step. In a busy and fast-paced life, we often think that to find peace, we must spend long hours in meditation or long moments of complete stillness. But in reality, peace does not need to be a long or harsh process. Sometimes, just a moment of stillness, a moment to stop and breathe, is enough for our soul to find tranquility and clarity. I remember one evening when a friend of mine named Lon and I were walking in the park. The atmosphere that day was light, quiet, and very peaceful. We had no special purpose, simply walking and talking about small things in life. Suddenly, when we stopped by the lake, a gentle breeze blew through. We said nothing, just stood still, letting the breeze embrace us. In that moment, the world seemed to stop, and only the gentle sounds of nature and our own breath remained. Lon looked at me, her eyes bright, and said, "Is it just a moment like this, when everything in my heart feels lighter? Indeed, just a moment of stillness. There's no need to rush, no need to search for long hours of silence. A moment of stillness, a deep breath, and listening to our inner selves is enough to refresh our soul. That moment is like a passing breeze, gently soothing, helping us forget worries, stressful thoughts, and giving us a wonderful sense of tranquility." Peace does not always have to be achieved through long hours of meditation or avoiding the world around us. What is important is that we know how to stop amidst the rush of life, finding small yet complete moments in each step. Stillness is not just absolute silence, but the ability to temporarily pause our worries, our distracting thoughts, and simply live fully with what is happening right then. I also remember mornings when I woke up before everyone else. At that time, I didn't open my phone or rush into work. I just took a few minutes to breathe deeply and feel the peace of the new morning. These moments of stillness, though just a few minutes, helped me feel much more at ease in my soul. When starting the day, I could perceive everything more clearly, without rushing, without getting caught in stress. In fact, a moment of stillness each day, no matter how brief, is enough to help our soul find peace. In those moments, we learn to let go of negative thoughts and emotions, allowing ourselves to rest, to feel the beauty and simplicity around us. That is a part of the peace we always seek, a way to help our soul find calm in the midst of life's hustle. A simple story from a friend always inspires me whenever I feel exhausted. She said, "Whenever life feels too stressful, I just need to stop for a few minutes, sit in silence, and look out the window. I don't need to think or do anything special. Just breathe and let my mind rest. After that, I feel that everything becomes clearer, and I know what to do next." We are often so busy with plans, worries about the future, that we forget that true peace only comes when we stop and live fully in the present. A moment of stillness can come from a quiet morning, a calm afternoon, or even just sitting at the table, closing your eyes and listening to your breath. Each moment of stillness helps us realize that life is not just about work and responsibilities, but also a deep connection with ourselves and the world around us. Once again, I remember a weekend afternoon when I stood by the window and watched the sunset sky. Each faint ray of sunlight shining down on the ground, a gentle breeze sweeping through, and I just stood there, saying nothing, doing nothing, only feeling the peace in my heart. That moment probably lasted only a few minutes, but it brought me absolute tranquility. A moment of stillness can change your whole day, helping you see things from a different perspective, more clearly and gently. So in this busy life, remember that peace does not need to be sought far away. Just one moment of stillness every day, a moment you dedicate to yourself to breathe, to feel, to live fully in the present, will help your soul become more relaxed, peaceful, and clear. That one moment, like a gentle breeze, is enough to help you recharge your energy and see the beautiful things in this life. In the journey of life, each of us faces emotions, from pure joy to deep sorrow. Sometimes, these emotions make our souls feel like they're swept away by a fierce wave. Sometimes they're as gentle as a passing breeze. And there's one thing that Buddha teaches us, that every emotion has value. They all carry a certain message, whether happy or sad. Learning to listen to and understand our own emotions will not only help us gain a clearer understanding of ourselves, but it will also help us let go of pain without fighting or denying it. When we feel sadness, we often tend to want to push it away, hoping it will disappear quickly. Similarly, when we feel anger, we want it to leave our minds as soon as possible. However, Buddha teaches that instead of denying or avoiding these emotions, we need to face them and listen to them. Negative emotions like anger, anxiety, or sadness are not our enemies. They are just signals from the soul, messages about unresolved matters or things we need to pay attention to. When we can accept them instead of resisting, we won't be controlled by them, but we'll gain deeper insight into ourselves and what we're going through. Accepting emotions is the first step to transforming them. When we realize that emotions, whether happy or sad, have reasons and purposes of their own, we will learn not to judge or fear them. When we feel sadness, it may be a sign of loss or the need for change. Anger may indicate that we are hurt or treated unfairly. Anxiety may remind us of things in life that are unclear. If we listen to these emotions without judging or denying them, we will begin to understand their message. When we feel sadness, for example, Instead of running away from or suppressing it, we can allow ourselves to feel it. Breathe deeply, feel the sadness in our body and mind without judging or fearing. Sadness cannot overtake us if we do not react to it with fear or resistance. This is the difference between living in sadness and living with sadness. Buddha teaches that when we don't resist emotions, they will not have the power to harm our soul. Instead of being swept away by them, we will recognize that sadness is just part of the flow of life and will pass, like rain that comes and fades. Emotions are also like clouds drifting in the sky. They appear, exist for a while, and then disappear. No emotion is permanent, and this awareness helps us not fear facing negative emotions. When we let go of our fear of our emotions, we no longer see them as enemies to fight. We begin to see them as inseparable parts of the human journey, silent teachers that teach us important lessons about ourselves. For example, if you're feeling angry, try stopping for a moment and asking yourself, why do I feel this way? What is hurting me? It may be an injustice in life or an unmet expectation. When you view the emotion of anger with mindfulness, you will no longer react impulsively. Instead, you will understand that anger is just a natural reaction, and you may need to change how you view the situation to free yourself from that emotion. Buddha teaches that love and compassion are the keys to healing. When we can love ourselves even while suffering, we will see that all emotions can be transformed. When we understand that each emotion has value, we will no longer fear or avoid them. Instead, we will learn to face them gently, with compassion and acceptance. It is in this acceptance that we will find the peace and healing we seek. A small story can illustrate this lesson. There was a woman named Lan who lived in sadness for a long time because of an unfulfilling relationship. She always tried to push the sadness away, hoping it would disappear. But every time she felt the pain, she sank deeper into it, making her soul even more exhausted. One day, she decided to stop and listen to the sadness in her heart. She didn't try to push it away, but instead allowed herself to feel it, letting it exist without judgment. Gradually, she realized that sadness wasn't something to run from, but a part of the journey of learning and growing. She began to forgive herself, forgive others, and found peace within herself. Emotions are a part of being human, and we cannot avoid them. But when we learn to face and understand our emotions, instead of running away or denying them, we will no longer be controlled by them. We will learn to let go of the pain without having to fight it. In fact, it is through this acceptance and understanding that we will find true peace. Peace from loving ourselves, from living fully with what we are feeling. In modern life, when everything changes at a rapid pace, and anxiety and stress seem to be inseparable parts, we often think that ancient values, especially the principles in Buddhist teachings, may no longer be relevant. But in fact, Buddhist teachings are not only valuable during meditation sessions or in temples. They can be applied deeply and usefully in our daily lives, especially in facing the challenges of work, relationships, and worries about finances or the future. I remember a story about a friend of mine named Min, someone I always admired for her calm approach to life. Min is very busy with a job that demands a lot of pressure, along with a small family and responsibilities that cannot be ignored. Like many others, she sometimes felt anxious about the future, about expenses, career, and challenges in life. But once, when we were sitting together, Min shared with me that she had found an invaluable gift in the principles of Buddhism, which helped her face every difficulty with more ease. Min said, "I often think about a Buddhist teaching whenever I feel overly anxious. It is, peace comes from letting go. I've learned not to cling to worries about the future, but to live fully in the present, doing my best without fear of what's to come." She said that whenever she felt stressed about work, she didn't rush to escape the feeling, but sat down, listened to her feelings, and accepted that it was part of life. Min learned not to let those anxieties control her, but simply faced them and did everything with a peaceful heart. Min's story made me think of the principles in Buddhism that I, too, have learned over time. One of the valuable teachings of Buddhism is awareness and mindfulness. These principles are not only valuable during meditation moments, but can be applied in any situation in life. We can practice mindfulness right in our work, in communication with others, or even when facing financial worries or concerns about the future. For example, when facing a high-pressure job, instead of panicking and worrying, we can practice mindfulness by breathing deeply, feeling each breath, and realizing that every problem can be solved slowly, step by step. We can't always control everything, but we can control how we respond to it. Buddhism teaches us that everything is impermanent, and because of this, worrying about things we can't control only adds to suffering. Instead, when we live in the present and work with calmness, we will feel lighter, tracked no matter how difficult the task is. I also remember once when I was talking to a friend about financial worries during a tough time. He shared that he was very fearful of the debts hanging over him and felt like he couldn't get through it. I remember sharing with him a Buddhist principle I had learned. Don't cling to worries about the future, but live fully with what you can do today. I told him that not every problem can be solved immediately, but if he could face those worries with calmness and focus on what could be done in the present, things would gradually become clearer. Modern life demands that we continuously face challenges and changes. However, instead of living in worry and stress, we can learn from the principles of Buddhism to master our lives. These values help us maintain peace in our hearts, no matter how noisy or chaotic the world around us becomes. Another important principle in Buddhism that I find very useful in modern life is letting go. Letting go does not mean giving up or avoiding responsibility, but it means learning not to cling to what has passed, not to fear what has not yet happened. The Buddha taught that when we let go of feelings of anxiety and high expectations of ourselves or others, we can truly live freely and happily. Practicing letting go helps us live more lightly, not burdened by fears or unrealistic demands. Buddhism is not something that can only be applied during meditation sessions or at the temple. It is a simple yet profound lesson that we can practice in any situation of life. When we apply these principles to our work, relationships, or worries about finances and the future, we will find ourselves more peaceful, clear-headed, and ultimately happier. Modern life can be full of challenges and worries, but if we know how to apply Buddhist teachings to each moment, we will find peace amidst the busyness. It is in those moments, when we live with a peaceful heart, that we will see that every difficulty can be overcome, and happiness is always present in simple things like breathing, like taking calm steps in life. We cannot avoid challenges, hardships, and times of deep sorrow. Sometimes we wish life would be easier. We wish everything would go the way we planned. However, the truth is, peace does not come from life becoming easy, but from how we face challenges. The Buddha taught that the more challenging and difficult life becomes, the more we apply calmness, patience, and compassion, we will find peace even within those difficulties. When facing challenges, our minds can easily be swept away by worry, fear, or even despair. We might feel overwhelmed by difficulties, and it is easy for negative emotions to overshadow our clarity. However, it is important to remember that these very challenges are opportunities for us to grow and find peace within ourselves. When everything around us seems unfavorable, when every plan is disrupted, that is when the Buddha teaches us to learn how to keep patience and calmness. Accepting that difficulties and challenges are an inseparable part of life will help us lessen the feeling of resistance. The Buddha taught that every challenge has a lesson, and when we learn to face them calmly, we will discover new opportunities, new changes we couldn't see before. Peace is not the absence of challenges. but the ability to keep our souls steady, calm, and compassionate when facing them. Let us imagine a sturdy old tree in the forest. When strong winds blow, the tree may bend, but it does not break. The tree does not fight the wind, but accepts and learns to bend with every gust. This is a wonderful image of patience and flexibility in life. Peace in the face of challenge is not about standing firm without budging, but knowing how to bend with the winds, not being defeated, but knowing how to breathe, move forward, and become stronger with each challenge. Another lesson in Buddhism is compassion. When facing challenges, instead of anger or blaming circumstances, we can apply compassion to ourselves and others. When we face difficulties with compassion, we not only soothe ourselves, but also help ease tensions in relationships. Compassion is not weakness, but a powerful strength that helps us remain calm and open our hearts, ready to embrace challenges with love and acceptance. An example of finding peace in challenge could be the story of a woman named Lan. Lan had faced many difficulties in her work and personal life. Every day, she felt surrounded by insurmountable problems. However, after attending a meditation course and learning to practice mindfulness, Lan realized that the challenges she was facing were not something to fight against or fear. She began to approach every situation with calmness, patience, and when difficulties arose, she saw them as opportunities to learn and grow. Thanks to her tranquility and compassion for herself, she gradually found peace even in the toughest challenges. When we apply calmness and patience in difficult times, we not only learn to face challenges, but also learn to live fully in the present. The Buddha taught that life is impermanent. Everything will change and nothing is permanent. When we understand this, we will no longer be swept away by worries about the future or regrets about the past. Instead, we will live fully in every moment, knowing that each challenge, no matter how difficult, will pass and bring valuable lessons. Buddhism also teaches us that each challenge is an opportunity to practice wisdom and compassion. Wisdom helps us see every problem clearly without being swept away by emotions, while compassion helps us face difficulties with love and acceptance. When we combine both, our soul becomes stronger and calmer, no longer fearing challenges in life. So when facing difficulties, remember that peace is not the absence of challenges, but the ability to maintain peace of mind when facing them. If we know how to apply calmness, patience, and compassion, we will find peace even within these challenges. And it is these challenges, though painful and difficult, that are opportunities for us to grow and walk with a lighter and stronger soul. Let each challenge in life become a step on the path towards true peace in the heart. We often think that love means holding on tightly, clinging, keeping people, objects, and everything close to us. However, the Buddha teaches that letting go is the deepest way to show love, not only to others, but also to ourselves. The question many people ask is, when we let go, do we still love? The answer is that letting go is an act of deep love, because not holding on is not always love. And sometimes knowing how to let go brings freedom and peace to both sides. When we love someone, we do not necessarily need to keep them by our side forever. Love is not possession, but respect and freedom for the person we love. Like leaves falling in autumn, no one forces them to stay on the branch forever. They fall freely, gently, and when they drop, they merge into the soil, nourishing the next sprouts. Similarly, when we love, we allow others to live freely, not bound, not possessed. Letting go is not the end of love, but a way of expressing love in a healthier, freer way. When facing sadness and loss, we often feel that holding on to memories, relationships, or things we have loved is the only way to prove our love. However, the Buddha teaches that letting go is the way to free both ourselves and others from unnecessary bindings. When we let go, we not only free ourselves from worries and suffering, but we also create space for love to grow freely, unhurt by expectations or bindings. This is unconditional love, respecting the change and impermanence of life. Think of the wind. The wind does not try to hold on to everything it passes through. It just gently blows, bringing coolness and comfort. Love is like that. When we love someone, instead of holding them back by controlling or forcing them, we let them be free, like the wind, to grow, to fly away and return, if that is what they desire. This does not mean we no longer love them, but we love in a noble way, giving them space to grow and find their own happiness. The Buddha teaches that love is not possession, but understanding and empathy. When we let go, we truly love because we understand that everything is impermanent and everyone has their own path. Love is not about making others live the way we want, but helping them live true to themselves, helping them grow and develop. And in that process, we also grow and find peace within ourselves. We can see that letting go is not just how we love others, but also how we love ourselves. When we hold on to the past, hold on to past relationships, hold on to negative emotions that cannot change, we are hurting ourselves. Loving ourselves is knowing how to let go of what no longer brings happiness, freeing ourselves from unnecessary burdens so our souls can be light and free. When we love ourselves, we are not afraid when facing change, because we understand that change is a part of life, and letting go is the way to embrace new things and new opportunities. There is a small story in Buddhism that I would like to share. A young man came to the Buddha with a sad face and full of worry. He said that he loved a girl very much, but she had left and he could not let go. The Buddha gently replied, "You cannot keep her with you forever because she also has her own path. When you love, you need to love without holding on, so she can find her own way. And when you let go, you will be free and find joy in that freedom." This story shows that love is not possession, but freedom and respect for the impermanence of life. When we learn to let go, we not only learn how to love others correctly, but also how to love ourselves. Love is liberation, freedom, and acceptance. When we are no longer worried, no longer controlling, or clinging to what cannot change. Letting go is when we understand that true love does not need to hold on, but allows the person we love to have space to grow and develop. So, whenever you feel tired, whenever you feel the difficulty of letting go, remember that letting go is an act of love, the deepest expression of love for both yourself and others. Letting go is not the end, but a new beginning, a new step in the journey of life, where love can bloom freely and truly. We often carry memories of the past, the joys that have passed, but also many times the pain and regret. These memories are like shadows that cling to us, making it hard to live fully in the present. Sometimes we get so caught up in the past that we forget that only the present can truly bring happiness. And when we learn to release the past, letting go of unnecessary pain, that is when we begin to feel real freedom in life. I remember a story about a friend named Lan, a kind and gentle girl, but one who carried wounds from the past. She had once been in a deep relationship, but it ended in sorrow. After the breakup, Lan could not escape those memories. Every night, old images would flood her mind, and she would drown in sadness. She always thought about what she had lost, what she had not achieved, and so each day passed with her feeling as if she were imprisoned by those memories. One time, I sat with Lan, and we talked about life. She spoke of those days, the pain she could not overcome. I listened to her, but then I asked, "Lan, have you ever thought about what you have now? Each day that passes, do you live fully with what is around you?" She hesitated and then sighed. "I don't know. The past haunts me, making it hard for me to live fully in the present." I told Lan, "We cannot live in the past forever because it is something that has already passed, and time cannot go back. If you keep drowning in those memories, you will miss the valuable opportunities of the present. Life is always changing, and only the present is where we can find happiness." I advised her to try something simple. Each morning when she wakes up, to take a few minutes to breathe deeply and feel that she is alive, existing in this moment. Just that. and the memories and pain would no longer dominate her. Lan decided to try. Every morning, she took a few moments of quiet, simply breathing, feeling each breath, and becoming aware of her presence in the now. She no longer rushed to think about old matters, but instead, she learned to enjoy those peaceful moments. Gradually, Lan realized that the pain from the past no longer dominated her mind. She began to view life more lightly, appreciating what she had, and most importantly, she learned to love herself more. Lan's story made me think of a great lesson. The past, whether painful or happy, is something that has passed. What we carry from the past can be beautiful memories, but it can also be sadness and regret. However, the important thing is that we should not let those memories dominate our present life. The Buddha teaches that we should not cling to the past because everything is impermanent. Life truly becomes complete when we know how to live in the present, letting go of what is past and embracing what is coming. We often think that if we do not remember the past, we forget the beautiful memories. But in reality, remembering the past does not mean living in it forever. When we remember the past without letting it affect the present, when we know how to relax our soul and not get caught up in those thoughts, we will truly be free. Only then can we welcome happiness in the present without being dominated by the ghosts of the past. Life has its difficulties, its losses, but if we keep living in the sadness of the past, we will miss the valuable opportunities of the present. Happiness is not a destination, but a journey. And that journey only becomes meaningful when we know how to let go of pain, not cling to the past, and live fully in the present. Only then can we see that life is beautiful and meaningful. When we learn to release the past, we will feel lighter, no longer burdened by old memories or pain. We will be able to live with what we have, appreciating each moment and every day that passes. Only by living in the present can we truly enjoy the beautiful things life has to offer, and only then can happiness truly come. So, if you feel caught up in the past, take a moment to stop, breathe deeply, and reflect. Let go of what is past and live fully in the present. Remember that happiness only truly exists in the moments when we no longer cling to the past, but let our souls soar freely in the present. In the journey of seeking peace and happiness, we sometimes face moments when our souls feel heavy, bound by the things around us. We cling to relationships, material possessions, and emotions that we cannot release. However, the Buddha teaches that the freedom of the soul comes from not clinging to anything, not just material things, but also relationships, past experiences, or worries about the future. When we let go of these attachments, our souls become lighter and freer, and it is this freedom that leads to peace in life. The Buddha teaches that freedom is not the avoidance of life. It is not running away from challenges, worries, or suffering. In fact, true freedom is the ability to live fully with ourselves, facing every situation and emotion without fear or resentment. When we no longer cling to anything, when we are no longer afraid of losing the things we cherish, we can live a truly free life. Freedom is letting go of unnecessary things, letting go of psychological burdens, and living more lightly with what exists. When we cling to material things, we easily lose peace of mind. The Buddha teaches that material things are temporary in this life. We may possess them at some point, but nothing is permanent. Therefore, when we cling to material things, we cause ourselves suffering when they are lost, because we value our lives and ourselves through these things. To have true freedom, we need to realize that the greatest gift in life is the freedom of the mind, when we are no longer controlled by material things or anything else. Similarly, relationships can also become things we cling to. We often become overly attached to loved ones, wanting them to meet our expectations. But when those expectations are not met, we feel hurt, angry, or disappointed. The Buddha teaches that love is respecting the freedom of others. When we love without clinging, When we allow others the space to be themselves, we will not feel suffering or resentment when they do not meet our expectations. True love is not possession, but respect and understanding, allowing each person to live freely on their own path. The freedom of the mind also comes from not letting the past or the future control us. We often cling to painful memories of the past or worry about things that have not yet happened in the future. The Buddha teaches that a free mind is one that lives fully in the present without worrying about what is past or what is yet to come. When we learn to live fully in the present, we will see that everything has value in that moment, and we will no longer feel bound by thoughts of the past or future. A beautiful and profound image of the freedom of the mind is the vast sky. The sky does not try to hold anything, yet it remains vast, free, and serene. It does not cling to the clouds or the sunlight, but simply lets everything move freely through. Similarly, when our minds are like the sky, unbound, unaffected by emotions or thoughts, we will feel a wonderful freedom, a freedom that brings true peace. Only when we do not cling, when we are not afraid, can the mind be open, free, and peaceful. The freedom of the mind also comes from not allowing negative emotions to control us. Sometimes we may feel anger, sadness, or anxiety, but the Buddha teaches that these emotions are like waves on the sea. They come and go, and we do not need to let them control our lives. Freedom is being awake in each moment, the ability to recognize and master our emotions without letting them master us. The Buddha teaches that true freedom is the freedom of the mind, the ability to face life naturally and gently, without being weighed down by burdens, expectations, or fear. When we no longer cling to the temporary, when we live in calmness and patience, when we face every challenge without fear or resentment, our minds will become free and peaceful. Finally, the freedom of the mind is not something distant, but a state that each of us can achieve by accepting change, letting go of attachments, and living fully in the present. When our minds no longer cling, when we no longer fear or resent, we will find peace, true freedom, and a life full of meaning. We often feel caught up in the whirlpools of emotions, anxieties, expectations, and relationships that we cannot control. We cling to things that cannot be changed, fearing the loss of what we cherish, and in the process, these things become the cause of our mental exhaustion, tension, and suffering. The Buddha teaches that the tighter we hold, the more we suffer, because when we do not let go, when we do not allow ourselves to live lightly in the present, worries and sorrows will dominate the mind, and we will not be able to find the peace we long for. Letting go is not giving up or abandoning important things in life. Letting go is freeing the mind from burdens, accepting the impermanence of life, so that we are no longer hurt by things beyond our control. When we learn to let go, we no longer feel bound by negative emotions, unrealistic expectations, or temporary material things. Instead, we will find freedom, lightness in the soul, and from there, peace will naturally come. Sometimes we have to learn how to face the difficulties, sorrows, and challenges that life brings, instead of trying to run away from them. These challenges and pains are opportunities for us to grow and find peace. When we are no longer afraid, no longer judgmental, and no longer crave a perfect life, we will realize that this life, even with its difficulties, always contains valuable lessons. And in those lessons, we will find strength and peace. Remember, letting go is an act of love toward oneself, a way to prevent ourselves from being swept away by worries, disappointments, or anger. When we accept change, when we understand that everything is impermanent, we will no longer be burdened by what cannot be changed. We will live fully in the present, loving ourselves and others without clinging to temporary things. And it is in that letting go that we will find a light heart, a peaceful life, and happiness. Remember, each day is a new opportunity to let go of unnecessary worries, to live a meaningful and free life. Let the pain pass and embrace life with an open heart, without fear, without resentment. Only when we let go can we truly love ourselves and others fully. I wish for you to always find peace in every moment and always keep your heart in a gentle space to love and live fully with this life. Let letting go be the path that leads you to a life of peace, freedom, and love.